He continues saying that she came prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. For the day of the espousal, it is customary among mortals to procure the most precious adornments and presents obtainable for adorning the terrestrial bride, and the most precious jewels will even be borrowed in order that nothing may be wanting to the array befitting her state and condition. Therefore, if we admit, as we are indeed forced to admit, that the most pure Mary was the spouse of the Blessed Trinity and mother of the second person, and that she was adorned and prepared for these dignities by the omnipotent God, who is infinite and rich without measure or limit, what adornments, what preparation, what jewels must those be with which he fitted her out, in order that she might be a worthy spouse and mother? Would he reserve any of his jewels in his treasury? Would he withhold any grace that could beautify and make her precious? Would he permit her to be deformed, ill-favored, blemished in any way or for the least instant? Would he be sparing and niggardly with his mother and spouse, when he so prodigiously lavishes the treasures of the divinity upon other souls, who, in comparison with her, are less than servants and slaves of his house? Let all confess with the Lord himself that she alone is the chosen one and the perfect one, whom the rest must recognize, proclaim, and magnify as the immaculate and most happy among women, of whom in wonder and with joyful praise they ask, "Who is she that comes forth like the morning, beautiful as the moon, and terrible as the serried armies?" This is the most holy Mary, the only spouse and mother of the Almighty, who descends to the world adorned and prepared as the bride of the Blessed Trinity for her spouse and her Son. This coming and entrance was made memorable by such great gifts of the divinity that the splendor of them made her more agreeable than the sunrise, more beautiful than the moon, more exquisite and admirable than the sun, and without equal among things created. She came more valiant and powerful than the heavenly hosts of saints and angels. She descended, adorned and prepared by God, who gave her all that he desired, and who desired to give her all that he could, and who could give all, that is, not the essentially divine, namely all that is most approximate to the divinity and farthest removed from any blemish of a creature. Entire and most perfect was this adornment, so that all defect was excluded, which would not have been the case if in any regard she failed in grace and innocence. Without this, the treasures of grace would not suffice to make her so beautiful, since they would adorn but a distorted visage, a nature infected with sin, or a garment soiled and besmirched by guilt. Forever there would have been a stain, a shadow and blot of guilt, which no diligence on her part could obliterate. All this was unbefitting the mother and spouse of God, and if it was unbefitting her, it was also unbefitting himself, for he would have failed to adorn and prepare her with the love of a spouse or the solicitude of a son, if, having in his possession most rich and precious vestments, he would have clothed his mother and spouse and himself in soiled and worn-out garments. It is verily time that the honor due to our great Queen should be unveiled and made clear to human insight, and that whoever was misled by opposite opinions should hesitate and cease to belittle and deny her the adornments of her immaculate purity at the instant of her heavenly conception. Compelled by the force of truth and by the light in which I see these ineffable mysteries, I proclaim over and over again that, as far as revealed to me, the privileges, graces, prerogatives, favors, and gifts of Most Holy Mary, not excluding even that of her being the Mother of God, all depend upon, have their origin, and are founded upon the fact that she was immaculate and full of grace in the moment of her most pure conception. Hence, all of them would appear ill proportioned and deficient without this favor, like a sumptuous edifice without a solid and well built foundation. All depend and are founded in a certain way upon the purity and innocence of her conception, and on this account it was necessary to refer so often in the course of this history to this mystery, especially when treating of the divine decree, the formation of Most Holy Mary, and the incarnation of her Most Holy Son. I will not enlarge on this, but I will give notice to all that the Queen of Heaven so esteems the beauty and adornment given to her by her Son and Spouse in her purest conception, that she will be correspondingly incensed against those who, with evil intention and obstinacy, try to bespoil her and debase her in this point, while her most holy Son had deigned to show her to the world thus adorned and beautified for his glory and for the encouragement of the mortals. The Evangelist proceeds. And I heard a great voice from the throne saying, Behold the tabernacle of God with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself with them shall be their God. The voice of the Most High is great and strong, sweet and efficacious, to move and draw towards him all creation. Such was the voice which St. John heard proceeding from the throne of the most blessed Trinity, and which caused him to pay perfect attention in order to understand thoroughly the mystery which was then shown to him. He was privileged to see the dwelling of God among men, and that he lived among them, that he was their God, and they his people. All this was contained in the mysterious figure of Most Holy Mary, descending from heaven in the form I have described. Since this divine tabernacle of God had now come to the earth, it followed that God also dwelt among men, for he lived and remained in this tabernacle. It is as if the evangelist had said, The King has taken possession and is holding his court in the world, and for no other reason than that he might remain and dwell on earth, and in such manner that from this tabernacle he was to assume the human form in which he was to be a dweller among men. In it he was to be their God, and they his people, as the inheritance of the Father, and also for his mother. We were the inheritance of the Father to his Son, not only because in him were all things created, and because all was given to him through the eternal generation, but also because he redeemed us as man clothed in our human nature, buying us as his people and as the inheritance of the Father, and making us his brethren. For the same reason, namely on account of his human nature, we are the legitimate inheritance of Mary Most Holy, since she gave him the form of human flesh by which he purchased us for himself. She, being the mother and the spouse of the Blessed Trinity, was also the mistress of all creation, which she left as an inheritance of her only begotten. For the human laws are founded on right reason, and therefore need not be invalid in the divine order of things. This voice proceeded from the royal throne through an angel, who, with a sort of holy envy, seemed to me to say to the evangelist, Behold and see the tabernacle of God among men, and he shall live with them, and they shall be his people. He will be their brother, and he will assume human form in this tabernacle Mary, whom thou seest descending from heaven by her conception and formation. but we can answer with equal joy to these heavenly courtiers. Indeed, the tabernacle of God is with us, for it is our tabernacle, and in it God becomes our own. He will receive from it life and blood, which he offers in purchase for us, in order to make us his people. He shall live in us as in his dwelling and habitation, since, receiving him in the holy sacrament, we are made his tabernacle. Let those heavenly spirits be content to be our elder brothers, less in need than we. We are the frail little ones, who must be strengthened and regaled by our father and brother. Let him come to the tabernacle of his mother and to us. Let him assume human form in her virginal womb. Let the divinity be encompassed and live among us and in us. Let us hold him in our midst, in order that he may be our God, and we his people and his resting place. Let the angelic spirits break forth in wonder and praise at such great marvels. But let us mortals enjoy him, uniting with them in praise and love toward him. The text continues.